What's going on, you guys? Theo here with the big review, back yet again with another King of Fighters Allstar video. It is Saturday, so you guys know what that means. It is time for our weekly Saturday chat and chill, and our topic this week is going to be the #1 question that I think I have been asked on this channel since the inception of the channel, which is, which Boss Syndrome banner should you prioritize? I've been asked about this ad nauseum even before these characters were dropped, so I'm going to go ahead and finally give you guys a decisive answer on this, since I have been trying my very best to kind of keep that under wraps as best I can and gather as much intel before I made a decision on that for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and try and break all of this down for you in today's video. But before we get into all of that, make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe, and let's go ahead and talk about the Boss Syndrome banners, both Volumes 1 and Volume 2. So if you guys watched my poll video yesterday, you will know that I do have both of the new Boss Syndrome characters, both Geese and Chrysalid, and I have A5'd my Chrysalid, and I also have A4 on my Geese. So I have had a couple of days since that was pre-recorded, and I had recorded that poll video right after these characters had gone live. So I've had a few days to go ahead and tinker around with these characters, and therefore I feel like I at least have a pretty decent grasp at this point on which one of these banners I feel like is more valuable to you guys. And you guys know of me, I'm pretty good about keeping my biases under wraps. I am pretty transparent with you guys on how I feel about things in this game. So for instance, when it comes to Geese here, yes, I know I have been extremely excited to have him for quite a while, and I have been talking about how excited I am to get my hands on him and how he is my favorite SNK boss. But hopefully after you've watched this video, you will know that the bias effect does not work with me, because I do have my issues with Geese. However, I will say that those are going to be somewhat small, and overall I'm very positive on all four of these characters. But the big thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to talk about the first banner before we talk about the new characters, because I feel like there are a couple of things about these banners that are really going to make or break your decision as to whether or not you should invest. So when it comes to the first two Boss Syndrome characters, both Boss Syndrome Orochi and Boss Syndrome Omega Rugal, we already know, I've had these characters for months to play test and mess around with. We already know how powerful these characters are. They are some of the best characters in the game, especially when it comes to PvE content in the case of Omega Rugal. However, there is one major issue that comes up with the rerun of these characters that really does change the way you should look at whether or not you should be pulling on these banners, and that is really going to be as far as the stones are concerned. Because when it comes to these stones, unfortunately, the event, they did bring it back for the new characters, but with the old Boss Syndrome characters, as I'm sure you guys are well aware of by now, you cannot get these old Boss Syndrome stones the same way as the new ones, meaning you can't just get a free selection box for these stones whenever you awaken these characters as you were when they first ran. So that really does drive down the value of this banner as a whole right now, especially whenever they are staring down the other banner, because that other banner, when we get to it, is extremely good. So when it comes to these stones, I will say that I do feel like these old stones are probably better, in my opinion, than the new stones. And I do feel like these stones are going to be something that if you can possibly get them from those mystery boxes and get lucky enough, you should feel very, very happy. However, being that you can't get them for free for awakening either Orochi or Rugal right now, and you can get the other stones with the other banner, I do feel like that alone pretty much makes your decision. Now, I'm never going to tell you guys that the first banner is without value. I feel like that first banner has a ton of value, especially if you're a new player. And look, the way that you really should be looking at this, if you're somebody who is a new player, all four of these characters, it doesn't matter which banner you go in on, are going to be a massive boon to your account. They are going to be characters that you are going to be using for months and months to come. They are going to be carries for you. They are actually going to help carry you through quite a bit of content in PvE as well as PvP. So if you're a new player, you really can't go wrong. But if you're really trying to budget correctly and get the most for your rubies, I feel like you really have to sit down and think about the stone situation, because as it pertains to these two banners, it really is the deciding factor in my opinion. Because look, if they would have brought back the stone system for both of these banners, then this conversation could be very different. However, there is going to be one big point with Banner 2 beyond the stones that I do want to talk about in this video, and actually there will be a supplemental video to this one later on today that I am going to bring to you guys. But as far as this stuff is concerned, I've had a lot of questions about the stone situation, and yes, while R stones do exist, and really the R stones are very good, but the problem is if you take into consideration these secondary effects, these middle effects that are on these skills for these different stones with these boss syndrome characters, they really are what set them apart from the R stones. Yes, statistically the R stones might give you a little bit of an extra bump to your attack, just based solely upon the fact that R stones typically are going to be stones that are going to have a little bit of extra stats on them. So for instance, if you take a look here, because with these stones for the BS characters, you're looking at a 10 and a 10. So you're looking at a total of 20%. And then if you go over to, say, for instance, your R stones, you're looking at a 10% and a 12%, right? So that's very good. It's an extra 2% over a boss syndrome stone. So you can technically get a little bit of extra stats out of an R stone in that capacity at least. However, when you take a look at the secondary effects on these other ones, whenever these are available, these are just going to be better than R stones for the specific reason that they are increasing a specific thing by a specific amount without having to have the character be in an awakened state. So, and really that's the biggest thing, is whenever you look at an R stone versus these boss syndrome stones, the fact that at the end of the day, you have to be in an awakened state to really take advantage of whatever is going on with the secondary effect of these R stones, it really does show you why the other stones are more sought after and they're preferred. So while yes, you can put R stones on your boss syndrome, Omega Rugal, and Orochi if you're just pulling them for the first time right now, unfortunately, you are still not going to get the full effect from them as you have been seeing for the past few months from other YouTubers, such as myself or anybody else that you might watch. You may be disappointed in the results if you are somebody who is expecting to match those numbers. Now, to my knowledge, there has not been a lot of intel out there from people gathered as far as what the major numbers differences are whenever you get down to the meat and the potatoes of it and you put these R stones on these original boss syndrome characters instead. To my knowledge, I have not seen anybody do that yet. I would like to do that for you guys, but being the fact that I had to max out 6 of the new boss syndrome stones for the new boss syndrome characters, I don't really have the capacity to do that right now. I might consider it down the road just for science, but for now, I'm not going to be able to do that. So when it comes to that first banner, I really do think the characters are great. The problem again though is the value proposition is just better with this banner. And the reason why, and I'm going to be honest with you guys right now, and again to get back to how my bias does not factor into what I talk about, this character right here, I'm going to be doing a supplemental video to this video today. There will be 2 videos today, on top of me doing the stream with Gunny later on today. I'm going to do a supplemental video to this because I want to focus on this topic outside of this video so that you guys can really see what I'm talking about. This character right here is the best boss syndrome character in the game right now, in my opinion. Now, I know that might be a little bit controversial. I know that there are going to be people that are going to have personal favorites, and I know that there are going to be people that are going to have differing opinions, and that is okay. I am always welcoming to that sort of thing, and there are always going to be pros and cons to any character above others. However, the value proposition with Chrysalid is absolutely insane, you guys. Chrysalid has wholesale broken Guildraid. Guildraid is no longer what it used to be. This character right here makes for the easiest one-key clear and expert you could possibly imagine. And not only that, for your quality of life, it is the quickest one-key Guildraid expert run that you can do. This character, albeit you must max him out in order to be able to match what you'll see in that video later today, this character can go in and solo, and I'm talking pure solo, no tagging in a striker, no tagging out Chrysalid himself, pure solo Guildraid expert, over 500 million damage, no problem. I did 10 runs in a row testing this yesterday, and I was able to hit those numbers easily each and every single time. Now, another thing to keep in mind with Chrysalid on Lunatic, because he does have that amazing mixed kit where he's going to have both Starlight with the radiant damage as well as darkness and have that core that is going to buff the damage, he is able to go into Lunatic and do the same numbers comparably. Now, being that he is a mixed type with a balanced type, the balancing on him, being that he can take a hit, means that he can get nuked by Omega Rugal and just shrug it off. Now, granted, in a long fight, if you're trying to pure solo with him for time and just for efficiency, then you are not going to be able to, probably without maxing him out fully, be able to survive the entire match. I'm able to do it, but my Chrysalid, as you can see, is completely and utterly maxed out. So you will probably have to swap out if yours isn't at A5. And I understand that most people will not have these characters at A5. However, being that his damage is so strong and he can basically play the role of both your shield shredder and your DPS and your dot application character, he can basically replace an entire team unto himself. On top of that, with that leadership skill, this leadership skill increasing boss fighters' attack by 60% is basically at this point, and it's not an entirely a replacement for him, but unfortunately, coupled along with Nightmare Geese, it is going to be a complete replacement for him. When it comes to Orochiori, who has been pretty much with us since the beginning and been one of the most popular leaders in PvE for a long time because of his leadership skill, Geese and Chrysalid coupled together, there is no more need for really this. This character is really not necessary anymore, and it's, you know, his time has finally come, I feel like, but unfortunately, these characters have kind of replaced the instances where you would need to use him. Chrysalid overall, with his kit, some people like to complain about the fact that he does have grabs, and I do agree that with grabs, typically, whenever you're talking about PvE, they can be a double-edged sword, right? However, with him, he is so strong that he can basically circumvent that as being a problem and just ignores it. And there are some kinks to his kit, like there will be with any character. For instance, his core finisher isn't necessarily the best thing in the world because it is a grab, and unfortunately it does cancel itself kind of late. So it's one of those things where you're not going to get the full effect out of it. But outside of that, he does have that new finisher with his Lightning Disaster that is still very, very good. This is going to be his best shield shred ability here, because you can basically cycle through your skills, apply that dot, get that finisher off, and then that shield on Omega Rugal is just gone. However, when it comes to this one here, this is his core finisher. This being a grab, unfortunately, is going to cancel itself on things like Immortals pretty early, so unfortunately, that part isn't necessarily the best. But overall, as a character, this character, in my opinion, is a must-own, and I think that this alone is the reason why the second Boss Syndrome banner right now is the way to go. Now, if they had brought back the stones for that other banner, I might reconsider this, but honestly, I'm so impressed with Chrysalid right now that I really just, I can't tell you guys not to invest in it. Now, when it comes to Geese, right, because there are two characters on this banner, so when it comes to Geese, I really like Geese a lot, and Geese is really, really good in a lot of different things in PvE. However, when it comes to a comparison between him and Chrysalid, in my opinion, Chrysalid is just better. like flat out just a better overall, more versatile character. Now, there are going to be instances with Geese where he is better than Chrysalid, like specifically in Immortal Dungeons because of his leadership skill and because of his very nice long finisher, which we'll talk about here. That is going to be a big boon for him there. So if you take a look at this, since we've already seen the other Chrysalid finishers here, we can take a look at Geese's. This one is quite a bit longer. So in Immortals, where you want to stop the clock as much as possible, Geese is going to be very, very, very good. In Guild Raid, however, he is a mixed bag. And really it just comes down to the fact, and there was a buff made to him. I know I had jokingly mentioned this in my pull video yesterday, that being that he has weird cancel windows, because again, that video was taped the night of release. Because he had weird cancel windows, some people on the Korean side had already been reporting that it was kind of weird and he felt kind of clunky. But I had talked to you guys in that video about how usually Netmarble will kind of tinker around with cancel windows, so I really wasn't worried about it. Well, lo and behold, a day later, they ended up announcing that they were going to be changing these cancel windows. The problem is his cancel windows are still a little wonky. So they're better, they're way better. But his one skill in particular, and I will go ahead and show you guys this here real quick, just so that you guys know what I'm talking about. But on his S3, he does still have a bit of a wonky cancel window. So I'll go ahead and show you. I'll go ahead and do this, and then you have to basically wait for him to finish, right? You have to wait for him to finish. It's very unfortunate, and basically that kind of hangs him up in certain situations. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't make or break him. He's still extremely good. He can still cancel all of his other skills very, very well, but the S3 cancel window isn't as generous, so that kind of changes things just a tad. Now, like I said though, this character overall, being the fact that we know now, because we didn't know in that original breakdown what Fear was yet, because it was within the first few hours of dropping the banner and we weren't sure. But with Fear, it is a stun. So being that Fear is a stun and it is therefore going to be kind of a CC effect, that is very, very powerful. And also, you really got to keep in mind that this character, specifically when it comes to PvP, is also going to be extremely powerful. So if you missed out on Delens, your next best bet, in my opinion, is going to be this Geese. I feel like this Geese is pretty much going to be your answer to the missing of the Seven Knights banner as a whole. But overall, I'm very happy with him. I think that in Immortal Dungeons, coupled with his leadership skill and his long finisher, his amazing PG gain, which all of these characters have amazing power charge, I think that he is going to be a huge boon for you. However, that brings us back, when we talk about Guild Raid, to Chrysalid, and the fact that, to be honest with you guys, Chrysalid has made everybody else defunct by default. So at the end of the day, as good as some of these characters are in this game at Guild Raid, it doesn't matter when you're staring down an A5 Chrysalid as boss or as Guild Raid bosses, because Guild Raid bosses right now, as they are situated, cannot handle this character. So I went ahead, I am going to do a supplemental video soloing with him, and I will show you guys exactly what I mean, and it should go up right around the same time as this video. However, I did want to go ahead, in the interest of using Geese and showing you guys what he is capable of in Guild Raid, I wanted to go ahead and bring you guys a clip of some runs that I did in Guild Raid Expert using both characters. So I'm going to do that, but do keep in mind that, in my opinion, I firmly do not believe that the optimal team right now is going to use Geese. I think that the optimal team right now is basically Chrysalid. So let's go ahead, we'll take a look at some of that footage, and then we will be right back with our final thoughts. So using both of these characters in Guild Raid Expert, you're basically going to be noticing that they are going to be able to put up the same numbers or better, and I think that once I've had more time with these characters to kind of get the muscle memory down with the rotations on these characters as far as their skills and they're kind of swapping in and out and so on and so forth, that I'm going to be able to hit probably easily 600 million damage on this mode. But really it comes down to the fact that with Geese, he has a couple of kind of quirks in this mode that you want to be aware of. Now, first and foremost, I still think that his best utilization in this mode is just going to be as the applier of the dot, and then he swaps out. mainly being the fact that his finisher for his 3PG and his core finisher, the damage is not necessarily the best. Now, the window for the 3PG card is going to be very long for the animation, so that is very good to buy yourself some time. Very, very strong. However, when it comes to this, it doesn't have a whole lot of hits on it, so therefore the overall damage output some people may find lacking, and I do think that that is probably the case, to be honest with you guys, especially when you compare him to kind of more optimized ways of running Guild Raid right now, which I again will talk about in that supplemental video that I'll put out right at the same time as this one so that you guys can see what I mean in that video. But overall, with Geese, he is very, very good. And again, like I said, if you missed out on Delens, he is going to be your next best bet. But there are going to be downsides, just like there are with any other character in the game. When it comes to Chrysalid, you know, he's dumb. He's just completely dumb. You know, again, I said earlier that this banner as a whole pretty much is the answer to people who missed Seven Knights, and by that I don't just mean that Delens has been replaced. In the role that Eileen plays, which is really to be there for shield shred and to be kind of your designated shield shredder, while yes, it is very tough to match the fact that she can pretty much get 2 finishers off in one rotation of skills. When you're looking at things in an unbiased way and comparing kind of apples to apples with these characters as far as performance, at the end of the day, Chrysalid is just better overall because he can do it all, and she cannot because she can't apply the dots necessary. So it's one of those situations where, in my opinion, this banner has completely replaced the Seven Knights in Guild Raid, in my opinion. Now, you may prefer to use your old characters since you have had them for quite a bit longer and had a lot more time to play around with them, and you may even have some bias or favoritism towards those characters, and that's fine. But for anybody who missed those, who doesn't have those characters, that needs answers for Guild Raid, both of these characters are going to be the answer. So at the end of the day, as far as it comes down to this mode particularly, which I know is a huge talking point for people, go for it. Now, one other thing to mention with Geese, his core finisher, his Raging Storm, also not necessarily the best for Guild Raid because it kind of is a stationary, non-full screen finisher that will miss unless you have this Rugal cornered or standing flat in the middle of an animation, so keep that in mind. That's another kind of little bit of a quirk to him, but this at least should give you guys a bit of an idea of how these guys stack up in this mode. So let's go ahead and give our final thoughts on these guys. So at the end of the day, the question posed in this video and the question that has been posed to me the most the past few weeks is obviously going to be which of these banners that you should be going for. And by now, I think I've pretty much made the case. You should be going for this banner, in my opinion, if you want as much bang for your rubies as you possibly can get. This is the best of the 2 banners currently right now as the game sits, because of a couple different reasons, and they are not limited to just the fact that these stones are not available for free with these characters for awakening them right now. It really just comes down to the fact that I am so high on Chrysalid overall as a character in this game in PvE, specifically in endgame content, that I really do feel like this is the banner to go for, because even outside of Chrysalid, Geese is so powerful and so good that it just makes this banner, by comparison, as far as the kind of value proposition, it just makes it make more sense to go with this banner. But again, this never takes into account favoritism bias or anything like that as far as that goes. So if there is a favorite in this banner that you would prefer, always pull for your favorites. I've always said that. If you have a personal favorite character, these are the guys that you should go for if one of them is your favorite. Another thing to keep in mind here, and this is kind of an aside, but we do not know if this banner will ever be rerun again. We know that in that Korean live stream, before they changed their minds on it and kind of put out that dev note to kind of give us an emergency change to plans, that they didn't plan on rerunning these guys anytime soon originally, and then there was a little bit of backlash and they decided to go ahead and rerun them as a result. So we don't know if these guys will ever come back. So if you feel kind of as though you would, put it this way, if you would regret not having these characters ever in the game, and there is that potential that they may never come back, then go for them. Because if you would regret it down the road, I would hate to see you guys regret not having these characters if they never get rerun again, because we do not have confirmation. At this point, we can pretty much assume that these two will get rerun. However, we can also assume, based on what we know now, that if they do get rerun, kind of like this banner, in the future, we may not be able to get their stones for them for free for awakening them. So that's pretty much a lock at this point if they do get rerun, which I'm sure they will, since the first banner has been rerun at this point. So that's another thing to keep in mind. It just comes down to what your preference is, but if you want my opinion, this is the way to go. This banner is where all the value is, and in my opinion, these two characters are phenomenal. I will be doing spotlights on both these characters in the coming days. I am working on a spotlight for Chrysalid first, and then I'm going to do one for Geese, so those will be coming early next week. That way I can get that stuff out to you guys as quick as possible. I will be doing the summoning battle live stream with Gunny over on Gunny's channel later on today, so make sure you guys check that out later. That will be at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time today. I will also be doing a supplemental video to this video about Chrysalid. That is going to be available right at the time that this video goes live, so make sure you guys check it out. You'll want to see that footage. But that is going to be today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you have better luck than a lot of people on these banners. I know that in my summoning video yesterday, I was very blessed with the RNG, but hopefully you guys are as well. I appreciate all of you guys for watching this video. Like, share, and subscribe. I will see you all in the next one. Peace.